The following program is an original production of WYCC PBS Chicago.
Thousands of Illinois college students left in limbo. What happens now that Governor Rauner has vetoed funding for scholarships that low-income students depend on? The Illinois primary up for grabs. Attack ads cause a stir in the race for state's attorney. And guess who's leading the Republican race for president? Can Donald Trump take Illinois? And texting 911. Why is it so hard to send an SOS from your cell phone? Stay with us for these stories and much more tonight on In the Loop. Good evening. I'm Chris Bury. Governor Rauner's veto of legislation to pay for the monetary award program known as MAP means more than 120,000 low-income students in Illinois won't get the scholarships they were promised. The veto also means more program cuts for state colleges and universities, all because Rauner and the Democratic leaders remain at odds in a budget battle that's been dragging on for 9 months. The veto is a serious setback for Illinois college students who rely on state scholarship money to help pay for their educations, and for community colleges that count on state funding for a big chunk of their budgets. Governor Rauner's veto comes after months of protests from students across Illinois. Illinois is approaching its 9th month without a budget. That has led to drastic cuts in programs from social services to public safety and now college education. But the blame game goes on. The governor faulted Democratic lawmakers for their refusal to support his education reforms.
It's unconscionable that we don't have a budget. I'm sorry for that. Speaker Madigan and his legislators that he controls have spent the money that should be going to our MAP grants in our university system. They've defended a current spending program at the state level that's unaffordable, unsustainable, and the money that should be going to our universities, where I would like to put it, and should be going to our MAP grants, where I would like to put it, has already been spent by Speaker Madigan and President Cullerton and the Democrats in the General Assembly.
A Republican measure would provide $1.6 billion for higher education, but it would also give the governor broad control to cut spending and shift around money as he sees fit. While the battle rages on, the state's 12 universities and 48 community colleges are in a financial chokehold, and thousands of Illinois college students are looking for answers.
There are a lot of people who started school with this grant, and there are a lot of people who depend on it greatly. So just taking it away from them halfway or throughout in the middle of their education just makes it seem like it was all for waste,
I think that these sorts of impact on students, they aren't just temporary. They wind up having a ripple effect, not only on the students, but on the family. And when these students get set back, it winds up impacting them long-term in ways that people really don't understand.
And joining us to talk about this and the upcoming Illinois primary races, Matt Dietrich, executive editor for Reboot Illinois, Mary Mitchell, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times, and Anthony Anderson, state director for the Illinois Conventions of States, and welcome to everybody. So, Matt, your publication, Reboot Illinois, put on a front-page editorial saying Illinois politicians seem hell-bent on destroying higher education. How is that so?
Well, we are now almost 9 months into the fiscal year, and the higher education institutions in Illinois, the public universities, community colleges, and 125,000 college students who had been promised financial aid have gotten nothing. Now, we are entering a situation now where you're having high school advisors telling students you may want to think twice before you apply to an Illinois public university because we don't know where this is going. You have a situation in Chicago State University where they don't know if they're going to make it through March. At the other state universities, they're bracing for the worst. These kind of things are not, this is not temporary pain for greater gain down the road. What this is becoming is permanent damage to the higher education system in Illinois. And I think all sides need to consider that at this point, you're reaching a place where you are affecting students, you are affecting the universities, you're affecting their ability to recruit better teaching talent. And this could have a ripple effect for a whole lot of years. If you have a freshman class next year where you've had lots of Illinois students who have gone out of state, you're looking at a 4-year ripple effect there, but think of the damage this is doing too to the higher education system in Illinois nationally. Tonight we're going to have Bernie Sanders at Chicago State University putting the national spotlight on the dysfunction in Illinois that we are causing directly to our public universities.
And so, Mary, do you see, lasting impact? We have this immediate effect of Chicago State. They're going to cancel their spring break and have a shortened year. But beyond that, what do you see?
Well, first of all, you're talking about a fragile population. And when we first got into this whole budget fight, the families that were affected were low income or working class people who couldn't get child care. That was devastating. Now we're talking about college students who had a very difficult, in a school like Chicago State, these are non-traditional students. These students, some of them are working jobs and trying to raise families and still trying to get an education. That money was important to them. And if they are not able to get grants, and if a school like Chicago State University has to turn away students, have to shut down, that is going to have a long-term effect on not only Chicago State, but in the community that it serves.
You heard in the opening segment, Anthony, but Governor Rauner is blaming the Democrats for this.
Well, it's unfortunate that the governor has taken the stance of blaming the Democrats in this situation because, as you know, under Article 8, Section 2 of the Constitution of the state of Illinois, it's the governor's responsibility to submit a budget to the General Assembly. He submitted a budget that was almost $3 billion out of whack to begin with. And so it's a little unfortunate that he's been disingenuous as it relates to the budget concerns of the state of Illinois. He has all the right to sit down with the Democrats and come up with some logical conclusion as it relates to this budget. To this date, he has not. It's been since 1818 that we went into a budget year that we haven't had budget for the previous year. So this governor, this sits at his doorstep in regards to this budget deal.
But in terms of the college program, and Matt or Mary, if you want to address this, Rauner is saying, look, if you give me the power to make cuts at certain agencies, then I'll release the money for the MAP grants. And he wants a bigger, more comprehensive bill that would give him more latitude.
Well, that's not going to, essentially what he wants to do now is, I want to take the legislature completely out of the budgeting process and do it all myself. And what is frustrating to all of us who have observed this is there is room for compromise on something. Rauner's got his reform agenda. We never quite know exactly what items from his reform agenda need to happen before he's going to move. But if he would accept as a victory a version of workers' compensation reform that's not as extreme as the one that he, not to quote Speaker Madigan, who has said that over and over again, if he would accept a version of workers' compensation that maybe doesn't go quite as far as what he wants to do as a victory, that would be an opening point to deciding a budget.
He doesn't even acknowledge the reform that would happen under workers' comp in 2011 when we had the original workers' comp reform. He thinks that you guys can go far enough. And another step he wants to go into, he wants to end collective bargaining here in the state of Illinois. Those are some of the things that he wants to do before he even moves from his position.
But
he's starting from an extreme position to begin with.
But here's the problem for me. The problem for me is that, a family a woman can give birth in 9 months. This is ridiculous that we cannot come up, the state of Illinois, with a budget. And I don't care whether we lay it at the Rauner's foot or at Mike Madigan's feet. It's too much ego involved in all of this. Negotiation has to happen. And the fact of the matter is, our elected officials are putting politics above families, above constituents. And as long as they're doing that, and as long as they're allowed to get away with that, then we're going to find ourselves in this mess again. Because I remember very clearly that when Rob Blagojevich, former governor, was in office, it was still a battle with Mike Madigan. It was still a battle with the Assembly. And they were all Democrats. We couldn't figure out why are all these Democrats fighting. So I think it's just a lack of negotiation and an unwillingness to compromise.
And in the meantime, these college students are kind of caught in the middle.
Well, and that's the problem. And I think what we've got here now and I think it's more on the part of the governor here, is you almost have this mentality that we need to destroy the village to save it. We need to enact the most stringent workers' compensation reform that we can. We need to impose collective bargaining restrictions. I want term limits, all of this stuff for the greater good down the road, and then we'll be a better state.
But in all fairness, the governor has said it's precisely because of all these compromises in the past we're in the situations that we're in today.
Well, that's true.
But again, the governor has to come to the table and bargain in good faith with the General Assembly. If that's not going to happen, he can't start from an extreme position again and say, I'm over here, you guys need to meet me over there. That's not how the game works.
In the meantime, we have a primary election coming up right here in Illinois on March 15th. Some very interesting races. Locally, of course, Cook County State's Attorney Anita Alvarez is up for re-election. Two strong opponents in Kim Foxx and Donna Moore. Some new ads are just out, and Kim Foxx has taken some of the footage from the Laquan McDonald shooting, put that into her recent ad, which criticizes the incumbent state's attorney Anita Alvarez. Let's take a look at that commercial.
When State's Attorney Anita Alvarez did nothing about this murder, she proved our justice system is broken. Kim Foxx is the only candidate who has what it takes to fix it.
Well, Anita Alvarez is crying foul over this commercial. She came out with a speech this week in which she said it was improper for Fox to use this footage in the campaign, that she was taking advantage of a tragedy. Mary?
Well, you know, it's out there. It's not like she's taking advantage of it, because everyone by now has seen that footage. That's first of all. And it is the biggest issue in this campaign.
So fair game.
So it's fair game.
It's not only the biggest issue in this campaign, it's the biggest issue for most African Americans in the Chicagoland area. I mean, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office has been plagued for years with these types of malfeasance. And so to bring this up right now, it's fair game. It's fair play for these people right now, because people want justice. People want to know that there's a justice system for everybody, not just a few.
And is it fair to say, Matt, that this is not only one of the biggest issues in the campaign, but it is clearly the only issue in the campaign?
It is huge, and I'm not sure that it's the only issue, because as you get into this, the Laquan McDonald case now has opened up so many other inquiries about all these other instances
Correct.
of police shootings.
And
Charging in the Dante Servin, the Rekia Boyd case, and that it was mischarged, that issue came up.
One of the good things that's coming out of this now, especially, is the fact that IPRA has now said that it would go with the recommendations that after video has been, something like this has happened.
This is the Independent Police Review Authority.
Absolutely. Right? They will release a video after 60 days, as opposed to waiting 60 days to a year almost to like this Laquan McDonald incident. So we're going to get these videos coming faster. So, you know, keep people on their toes, doing the right thing for the community.
At the same time, for all the heat and criticism that Alvarez has gotten because of this, the most recent polls show her leading both Fox and Moore. Anybody surprised by that?
I was actually very surprised by that, but I think that's name recognition, you know, and that is on voters. Honestly, and I say this basically because the African American community may be upset about Anita Alvarez, but unless they're going to come out and vote, then, you know, she's still going to remain in office.
And do we see the possibility, Matt, politically, that you could have Kim Foxx and Donna Moore basically split the anti-Alvarez vote and she comes out ahead?
That's always a possibility. That's always a possibility, and the incumbency is very powerful.
In the meantime, we have a big national race headed into the Illinois primary. The Paul Simon Institute at Southern Illinois University has released a presidential primary poll. This was taken just before Jeb Bush dropped out of the race. Donald Trump gets 28% of those who say they would vote in the Illinois primary, well ahead of the 15% who prefer Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, and close behind are Marco Rubio at 14% and Governor John Kasich of Ohio at 13%. Given that Illinois is a blue state with
moderate
Republicans,
yes.
What do you think of the fact that Donald Trump is leading the pack?
I was
here?
honestly surprised to see that polling data. But in long term, it looks like Donald Trump, he ran the gamut. I mean, from Nevada, New Hampshire, South Carolina. And so Illinois is just one more stepping stone to his quest for nomination to be president of the United States. And so it's really, next week is really going to tell a tale when the SEC's coming up here. Super Tuesday, looks like he's poised to take over there also. So
these are the southern states.
The southern states, absolutely, absolutely.
I'm not at all surprised that the polling data would show that Trump would be leading, and the reason
even in Illinois.
Even
in Illinois, Mary, huh?
Even in, let me tell you why. Because Illinois right now is dysfunctional.
But
and people are very upset. People are angry. They're angry about the whole budget situation. So the anti-establishment candidate is going to get people are looking at that candidate. They're not just dismissing him because, oh, he's too bombastic and he's too this and he's not good for us. But right now, I think they're willing to go with someone who is different.
But dysfunctional to the point to where they're going to hold their nose and vote for a Republican?
Dysfunctional to the point that you got universities that's going to have to close down because there's no budget.
Well,
that's
Matt, Trump is winning now in every demographic you can imagine, right? Evangelicals, poorly educated, college educated, even Hispanics in Nevada. Does that shock you?
Well, I keep watching this race with a sense of disbelief, like there's going to be a correction at some point, but it never seems to come. And I'll tell you, last summer in Springfield, there was a Trump rally, and it was held in the same arena where they do the gubernatorial inauguration.
I was there.
And 10,000 people in that place, and they were crazy for him. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but if these numbers are the same on March 15th after the vote, I think I will be surprised, because I genuinely did think that Illinois, which elected Mark Kirk, probably the most moderate Republican in the Senate, I thought that the Republican Party here would go for a Marco Rubio, for example.
Well, because this is a more moderate state, let's turn that question around. Is Illinois the place that is going to stop Trump?
No.
I doubt it.
No, Illinois would
not
not
based
stop
on
Trump
these numbers.
I do
whatsoever.
not think so. And
It's not.
I also think this is a reflection of the whole culture of celebrity worship, and people being impressed. It's like we're watching a reality TV show instead of an election campaign.
And speaking of that, this is playing out on Twitter, and Trump went on Twitter this week to criticize. He's a billionaire. He's criticizing another billionaire family, the Ricketts, which own the Chicago Cubs, and the matriarch of that family, Marlene, has contributed some $3 million to a political action committee which is running ads against Trump. And so Trump sends out a tweet warning them to be careful, quote, they've got a lot to hide. Does that sound like a threat?
Absolutely, it's a threat. I mean, Trump, if you have anything against these folks, then bring it out. But otherwise, it goes back to Mary's point. He's just being bombastic in his normal way. So if you have some information, let the world know.
Right, and the other thing I thought that was really interesting about that is that we're paying attention to it. We're writing and quoting every little dumb thing that he says, as if, we would challenge any other candidate to say, if you say he's got something to hide, we would push that button. We want to know, what are you talking about? He just gets to say whatever he wants to say.
Yeah, I think you get into dangerous territory when you try to make too much sense out of a lot of things that Donald Trump has been saying. And again,
but that's the only way to expose him that he doesn't make any sense. Is that
Well,
you have
it
to
seems
challenge
like
him.
he can't do any wrong, though, because the more things he does that's out of the ordinary, the higher his polling numbers go, or they stay the same. So it's not having a negative effect or negative impact on his campaign overall. I mean, he's still at #1 in terms of all the polling data.
So is Trump the Teflon candidate? I mean, all these things that he said have created so much outrage. I mean, tons of ink and internet space have been spilled.
One of the biggest things coming out of South Carolina, they asked the people, what is it about Trump that you like the most? They said the fact that he speaks from the hip. That's what they said.
Because they don't believe other politicians.
They don't believe other politicians. And that's what goes
that
against
elected
Trump.
officials are quick to lie. They don't trust them. So even if he's saying dumb things and nasty things, at least he's saying them, and they believe that he's telling the truth.
But what about the policies, for example, when he's asked about, he says he'll repeal Obamacare, and what are you going to replace it with? He says something wonderful.
again,
And we buy that. Voters are actually buying that. That's the shocking part.
Some voters are buying it to a certain extent, but for the most part, people are going to come and hate Trump. I mean, you've got to give us something right now. At some point, somebody's going to say, the proof is in the pudding. What do you mean when you say what you say? And that's what's going to have to happen eventually. If he's eventually the nominee for president, these questions are going to be asked by Hillary or Bernie Sanders, and there's going to be some substantive debates coming on. This is just the primary, so we're going to get over all that once the primaries are over.
Yeah,
Finally,
it's like I said, you try to make sense of this stuff, and you just head into trouble. It's like you wade into quicksand.
Finally, we have the Oscars coming up, the Academy Awards this Sunday, and this year, of course, the whole process has received lots of criticism because of the lack of diversity, especially in nominations for the top positions, top actor, and so on. And here in Chicago, we asked the Chicago Sun-Times film critic, Richard Roper, about this. We asked him, what about the fact that people like Spike Lee are staying home, and also the role of Chris Rock, the comedian who is going to be the host. And here's what Mr. Roper had to say.
Well, it's interesting because Will Smith is not going to attend. I actually talked to Spike Lee about this, and he said, he goes, I'm not attending, but I'm not calling for a boycott. And a lot of people have even said that Chris Rock should step down and not be the host. I think that's crazy. I think the best way for Chris Rock, who's one of the greatest social commentators of our time, to talk about this issue is to walk on the stage at the Oscars and talk about it, because he's going to. So why would he step down and say, I'm boycotting the Oscars? How about Chris Rock? He'll talk about the elephant in the room.
So is it up to Chris Rock to talk about the elephant in the room?
Well, I don't know if I would choose Chris Rock as the official spokesman for diversity, but, when the problem is 94% of that body is white, and so you get the average age is 63, 64 years old, and most of them are men. And so, you're going to have this type of voting situation happen. So what would you expect? You would expect them to diversify this, moving forward. Last year we didn't have any diversity. This year we didn't have any diversity. And it looks like 2017 will be no different. So you have to address some of the systemic issues within that body itself. And I don't think Chris Rock is the one to do it.
The Academy is now saying that it's going to double the number of ethnic minorities and women by 2020. So do you think that some of this...
So from 1 to 2?
Did this publicity pay off, Mary?
This is such a reoccurring story. I've written about this several times in the past. We always get these years where there are no blacks being nominated and everybody gets upset, and then they make some correction. I think the problem here is that it happened last year and it didn't get any better this year, and now people are outraged. But as far as watching the Oscars, as far as I'm concerned, most of those movies I wasn't interested in. I didn't go see. So, a big part of the viewing audience, you're gonna miss them. If you don't have diversity at the theater or in the movies, you're gonna miss a big chunk of the population.
And Matt, as we heard, Spike Lee, the famous director, is staying home. He's not calling for a boycott. He's making a personal statement, but is he doing the right thing, to paraphrase one of his movies?
Well, Spike Lee can do, as he wants. I think one observation that I've had, though, is that this is maybe bad for the Academy, for its image and whatever, and they're wringing their hands over it. But the fact that Chris Rock is hosting this year is the greatest thing for that program, because people like me who usually ignore it, I just wait and see the highlights the next day on YouTube, I want to hear what Chris Rock has to say. I want to see how he handles that. That to me is the most fascinating thing going on with this particular broadcast. I think your points are very well made on the issue and the need for some real change in the Academy.
We just have a few seconds left, and while we're on the Oscars, let's get everybody's quick pick here for Best Picture.
Matt Damon and The Martian.
Okay.
I didn't like The Martian very much,
What?
but then I didn't like it. But but of course, I think Spotlight will probably.
Spotlight.
Chris, I ran the table this year. I have not seen any of the nominated movies. However, I'm going to pick Spotlight because it's the one that I have most wanted to go see.
I've seen Spotlight. It's terrific, and it's about journalists, which is another great thing about it.
It has our vote.
So, thanks to our guests today, Matt Dietrich, Mary Mitchell, and Anthony Anderson. Here's a question. Why is it so hard to send a text for emergencies instead of a 911 call? In Illinois, some municipalities are among only a handful of police and fire dispatchers across the country equipped to answer 911 texts for help. Barbara Pinto reports on the patchwork of places you can text for help and the growing pressure for nationwide access to this technology.
911, what's your emergency?
Oh, yeah, we have a school shooting.
In the most dire emergencies, calling 911 can be a dangerous decision. For college students hiding from a gunman at this deadly shooting in Seattle, and also in cases of domestic violence. Cordelia Pottinger-Walters knows firsthand.
You need to be verbally saying something which you're going to be overheard. How do you get away with that? It's very difficult because usually abusers they're not too far behind. They're watching you.
Cordelia's life now in the corporate world is a far cry from 27 years ago, when she was a young mother married to an abusive man who kidnapped and threatened their 3-month-old child.
If texting ability was there then, I could probably have texted while he was there before he even left the house with my child.
But decades later, little has changed. In an era where text messaging is possible with just about anyone, Only 5% of the nation's emergency dispatch centers have the ability to receive texts made to 911.
Evanston 911, where's your emergency?
Evanston police were among the first in Illinois to adopt the technology, since 70% of the 911 calls dispatchers answer here come from cell phones. Handling texts was a natural next step.
Information out of Chicago on that armed robbery.
Perry Polinsky is communications coordinator for Evanston Police 911 Dispatch.
I think a lot of people just assume that the capability is there, but again, if you're in an area of the state or the country that has not provisioned for text 911 service, you can't use it.
In places where text 911 service does not exist, emergency texters get this bounce-back message instructing them to call 911 instead. This map shows the patchwork of places in the greater Chicago area equipped to receive texts for help.
Even in municipalities like this one with the capability to handle emergency text messages, the technology has its limits.
Longtime dispatcher Rita Falk runs the Northwest Central Dispatch in Arlington Heights, handling police and fire calls for 11 suburban communities. They've answered emergency texts for nearly 2 years now.
The phone call we usually get, if it's a landline, we get their address information. If it's a cell phone, we get their possibly GPS location. With a text message, the way the technology is right now, we don't get necessarily a great location on where they are.
This is what dispatchers see when a text for help comes in.
That person could be anywhere within that circle. It's actually a really large circle. We can try and zoom in, but it doesn't always pinpoint. That's the problem with texting, is that we really have no idea exactly where they are.
Texters need to provide detailed location information, and there are other drawbacks. Dispatchers who are trained to gather information from tone of voice and background noise have less information to go on. Stephanie Love Patterson runs Connection for Abused Women and Their Children. Her organization helps nearly 1,000 victims of domestic violence each year, providing shelter, counseling, even free cell phones that abused women are often reluctant to use.
If the perpetrator hears her audibly calling out for help, that could put her in a lot of danger. And so for that reason, a lot of women won't use the phone. But what if he still hears me? Is a terrifying thought for them. So being able to have a phone, a free phone that we give them, and text the number, text 911 and reach out for help would be such an improvement.
Because if I didn't have the chance to reach out for help, I don't know where I would have been right now.
Survivors and advocates for victims of domestic violence are pushing for nationwide adoption of texting 911 in hopes this silent cry for help can save lives.
500 is clear. 500, 10-4.
For In the Loop, I'm Barbara Pinto.
And that concludes tonight's show. You are now in the loop. And next week, the mess at CPS. Should Chicago Public Schools file for bankruptcy, or should the state take over the schools, or is there a better idea? Join us for an in-depth look. Until then, for Barbara Pinto, I'm Chris Bury. Good night.